Let's travel back in time, way back, to the ancient court of Khosrow I of Persia. This was a legendary time, an era of incredible wisdom, power, and, as we're about to see, some pretty high-stakes intellectual battles. You see, this isn't just a story about a couple of board games. Nope, it's about two completely different ways of looking at the entire world, all played out in a silent gambit between two powerful kings.
Okay, so picture the scene. You've got this magnificent Persian court, full of powerful people, and in walks this mysterious delegation, all the way from India. Everyone's watching. But these guys aren't there for the usual diplomatic stuff. They have a very, very specific and very unusual purpose.
And here's where it gets interesting. It's all about what they didn't bring. There was no gold tribute, no rare spices, and definitely no show of military force. They came without any of the usual royal gifts. And you can just imagine the court buzzing, trying to figure out what on earth was going on. Instead of all that, they presented a single object, a board. But what a board. Think of this polished wooden surface, maybe with beautiful ivory inlays. And on it stood this silent army of carved figures, totally unfamiliar to the Persians. It was a puzzle, a work of art, and a challenge all rolled into one.
And with that board came the challenge. The message from the Indian king laid out the terms, and they were, well, intense. If your wise men can figure this game out and explain its rules, we will pay tribute to you. But if you fail, your great Persian empire must pay tribute to us. This wasn't just a game. It was a battle of wits with the kingdom's pride completely on the line.
So, the greatest minds in all of Persia gather around this silent battlefield. For days, they just stare at it, studying the board, trying to crack its secrets. But the pieces themselves offered no clues. The game's logic was just locked away, a total mystery.
The real genius of this puzzle was in the pieces. Imagine the king's top advisor, his vizier, a wise man named Bazorgmer, just studying these intricate carvings. He starts to see it. He's not just looking at wood and ivory anymore, he's looking at an army. He sees kings with these ornate royal turbans, clearly important, but also vulnerable. He sees foot soldiers carved wearing the traditional dhoti of ancient India, ready for a fight. And then you have these towering war elephants with elaborate canopies called howdahs on their backs, and swift sculpted horse cavalry looking like they're about to leap right off the board. It's a perfect miniature replica of an ancient Indian army.
And then it clicks, the breakthrough. As Bazorgmer keeps looking at how the pieces are set up, how they relate to each other, the whole purpose of the game just slams into focus. He looks up from the board and says it. This is a battlefield. And that one single insight, that simple statement, changed everything. It was the key.
So he starts explaining to everyone that this game, which we now know as chess, but which came from an older Indian game called chaturanga, is basically a perfect simulation of war. Every single piece has a specific role, a specific power. The soldiers march forward, the horses jump in their weird L shape, the chariots charge across the board. The key, he realized, is that victory here has nothing to do with luck. It is pure strategy. It's about foresight, planning, and understanding how every single move affects the entire structure.
And just like that, the mystery was solved. The vizier had cracked the code. Persia had met the challenge, and no tribute would have to be paid. But, as you might have guessed, this is only the end of Act 1. The story was far from over.
You see, solving someone else's challenge is one thing, but coming up with your own response, that's a whole other level. Bazorgmer, now that he totally understood the Indian game, decided to create a new one. And this wasn't just some clever comeback. It was a deep, philosophical statement cleverly disguised as a game.
So he sends this brand new game back to India, and it was a world away from chess. Instead of all these unique, beautifully sculpted figures that look like an army, this new board just had simple, identical, flat discs. Their meaning wasn't in their shape at all, but in the journey they took across the board. The challenge was now flipped back on India. All right, you understand this game, and we will acknowledge your wisdom.
Now, the Indian scholars, who are masters of strategy and logic, were probably feeling pretty confident. But as they started to play, they just got more and more confused. They kept looking for the patterns of control and calculation they were so used to from chess, but this new game just resisted it. There was some element they couldn't predict, something they couldn't master. After trying for days to find a fixed system, they finally had to give up. They admitted defeat.
That's when Bazorgmer sent his explanation. And it shows just how deep his thinking really went.
He didn't say, oh, this board represents a race, or it's about a journey. No, he said something much, much bigger. He said, this board represents the world.
And then he broke it down. Every single element was symbolic. The 30 identical, uniform pieces, those represent the 30 days of the month. The 24 sharp triangular points on the board, those are the 24 hours of the day. And then he revealed the game's core secret, the 2 dice. The dice, he explained, represent fate, chance, all the forces in the universe that we simply cannot control.
So this game, which was called Nard, what we now call backgammon, is really a game about life itself. Yeah, you absolutely make strategic choices about how to move your pieces, but the options you have are determined by the roll of the dice. You have to adapt. Your progress depends not just on your brilliant plan, but on how you respond to what fate or luck or chance gives you from moment to moment.
And this brings us right to the heart of the whole story, this incredible contrast between these two games. They aren't just ways to pass the time. They are two opposing, yet equally true philosophies for how to live your life. One is all about control, and the other is all about acceptance.
So let's look at them side by side. On one hand, you have chess. It's a world of total control, of perfect information. It's all about structure, pure strategy, and calculated moves. On the other hand, you have backgammon. That's about navigating the flow of time and embracing chance. It requires you to accept the unknown and adapt to the roll of the dice.
What you end up with is this beautiful dialogue playing out across 2 empires. The Indian king sent a game that basically said, life is strategy. The smartest planner always wins. And the Persian vizier replied with a game that said, you're right, but life is also chance. The wisest adapter is the one who endures. It wasn't a rejection of the first idea, but an expansion of it. The second, necessary half of the whole story.
And you know, this ancient story brings us right back to our own lives. Today, we all face moments that are like a game of chess, right? Moments that demand pure strategy, where every move has to be calculated. But we also face moments that are pure backgammon, where we just have to roll the dice and adapt to whatever happens. Most of the time, we're actually playing both. So, the real question is, as you navigate your own life, moving between moments of certainty and uncertainty, which game are you playing right now?